Welcome back, everybody. It's me, E-Man, and today we're going to review Ghostbusters. All right, let's do a very quick intro. So there's something strange in the neighborhood. Now, who are you gonna call? Ghostbusters! That's right. You don't really need an intro. Everybody knows about the Ghostbusters, so let's just get straight into the good.
The good.
Right off the bat, you'll probably notice that a lot of the characters have some really great chemistry interacting with one another. Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy have already been through this, so they deliver exactly as you would expect they would. What I appreciated with all of the characters was the fact that they were able to maintain their own identities and their own comedic strengths throughout the entire movie. I personally think that Kate McKinnon and Leslie Jones probably stood out the most. McKinnon was just weird, but in a funny, good way. She probably had the best scene in the movie, and some might argue that she almost stole the movie. I actually really liked her engineer role. I think that what she did with the Ghostbuster gadgets was actually a very good and needed upgrade to make this version of Ghostbusters more relevant in 2016. Now, some of you might know that I've had some previous concerns about Leslie Jones's portrayal and whether or not it would be just a little bit too stereotypical in the traditional Hollywood fashion. Leslie Jones exceeded my expectations. I'm happy to say that she wasn't just a generic stereotype. If anything, she acted exactly the way you or I would act if we were in some of the situations that the Ghostbusters were in. More importantly, I understand, just like many others, there was a concern that she was not a scientist just like the other characters, but in a way they made her an expert in another field, and I think it worked. She was a valuable asset, and I appreciate what they did with her character. While the plot of the story did kind of feel stitched together, it was still an overall good plot. It was simple and it was straight to the point. And let's not act like the Ghostbuster stories were always that deep anyway. I think it'll be very easy to see that the visuals in this movie were done very nicely, and they paid a lot of attention to making the ghosts really stand out and pop. Sometimes you might have to pay very close attention, but even from the beginning all the way to the very end, you will always see some sort of nod to the previous films and or its characters. So enough of that, let's get straight into the bad.
The bad.
For the life of me, I really couldn't figure out the tone that this movie was trying to have. It almost felt like I was watching two different movies, where the first half was kind of like nice, subtle humor, where you had the nice little banter back and forth, and it was cool. And then the second half was kind of like a mixture between sense of urgency increased, but yet we just transitioned into like wacky, goofy, corny stuff. It just kind of felt a little unbalanced. As I mentioned before, the movie does pay a lot of homage to the previous Ghostbuster films, and because of that, you will probably see a lot of familiar faces given a lot of the cameos that have been done in the film. However, in my opinion, a lot of these cameos really just felt forced. I think maybe one or two cameos kind of made sense, but the rest of them were just interjected in there. Now, my biggest issue with this movie was not the fact that it was a reboot or a remake. I didn't care that they were just doing that. Rather, my issue is the fact that this wasn't really a warm handoff. If you're gonna spend that much time in the movie giving us all these nods and all these hints at the previous movie, you might as well just give us a nice warm handoff type of transition that would make more sense as to why this movie was being made. For example, you could have had the old Ghostbusters still be around. Maybe they were in retirement, or maybe this was the West Coast branch and they did the East Coast branch. Either way, there was a lot of other avenues that they could have taken to just make this a nice smooth transition, given the fact that they were erasing the last two Ghostbuster movies. I think that's probably what contributed to a lot of the controversy, because a lot of Ghostbuster purists really were like, why are you destroying our old movie, but then you're still calling back to the old movie, and it was just kind of confusing. My last grievance is the fact that this was a lot like Saturday Night Live in terms of their brand of humor. Now, obviously you have some characters that are coming from that actual production, so it's kind of a given that they're gonna have that style of humor. But if you don't watch Saturday Night Live, and if you're not a fan of SNL, then this comedy may hit or miss for you. Some of the scenes kind of felt like they were deleted scenes, but for whatever reason they just left them in there just to have something funny in there. I guess the three different ways that you can categorize how I reacted throughout this movie, you could probably look at any one of these reactions right here. For some, this was laugh out loud funny. For others, it wasn't really funny. For people like myself, it was just chuckle worthy. Let's get on to the reason.
The reason.
Now, it's not breaking news that there was obviously a lot of controversy behind this movie, and this is before it even released. I was on the fence with this movie initially, and I wanted to go in with low expectations, but an open mind at the same time. So my impression after watching it was that this wasn't trash, it wasn't great, it was digestible. In other words, it wasn't black licorice, but it wasn't a Snickers bar, it was just a peanut. Hey man, why a peanut? Because peanuts aren't really bad. However, when you think of the rampant hatred that people who didn't even see the movie had, they are going to try and avoid this movie as if they had a peanut allergy. You see what I did there? Peanut allergy, because they act like they'll die if they watch this movie. Hey, hit them drums. Hey look, I've been saying this for years. Comedies are probably the most subjective when it comes to any movie genre. They're incredibly difficult to critique. What I might find funny, you might not find funny, or vice versa. So my recommendation is, hey, if you hated the trailers and you hated the concept, don't go watch this movie. Because 9 times out of 10, you'll probably find something that you want to nitpick about the movie and still just not like it. Now, if you love the work of Paul Feig, then you might actually enjoy this, and this is right up your alley. Say, by all means, go ahead and give this movie a shot. Now, if you were on the fence like myself, then all I'll say is that it's not as bad as other people made it out to be. You know, the people that hadn't seen it yet. So when it comes to the rating for Ghostbusters, I'm going to have to give it a 6.5 out of 10. It's watchable, it's entertaining. It wasn't necessarily my cup of tea, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be bad for others, because I know some people actually enjoy that brand of humor, and that's fine. So at the end of the day with Ghostbusters, trust your gut. So I got a couple questions for you guys. Will you be willing to give Ghostbusters a shot despite all of the pre-hate that came out on the internet? If you did see Ghostbusters, what did you think about it? By the way, if you haven't heard, I have officially partnered up with movietickets.com, and I am now a part of the Movie Mob. That means I get to make very cool exclusive videos for them that you can't find anywhere else. If you're subscribed to my channel, you can definitely look at one of my playlists and you could see the Movie Mob playlist right there. Check out all the videos there, especially mine, you know. And I've got a very interesting one coming up very soon. Well, that's all I got for today. I want to thank you all for joining me. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe. You can always follow me on Twitter and Instagram at spoiler-free. If you want to follow more of my reviews, you can always visit my main website, emansmoviereviews.com. And I've got more videos and more reviews to do. And until then, I'll see you later.